Hello children, this video is for class 7, subject physics. We are going to learn chapter number 6, sound part 1. Following topics will be covered in this video. Number 1, how sound is produced. Number 2, sources of sound. Number 3, sound needs a medium for propagation. And number 4, sound can travel in solid, liquid and gas. Children, in our daily life, we hear different types of sounds like the ringing of a school bell, the sound from a clock, sound of playing guitar, honking of vehicles, etc. We also hear different voices of different persons and different sounds produced by different animals such as barking of a dog, etc. We can define sound as sound is a form of energy that produces the sensation of hearing in our ears. Now let us discuss the topic how sound is produced. Before that, we will know what are the two different types of motions. Number 1, oscillatory motion. The to and fro motion of a body from its rest position is called oscillatory motion. For example, motion of a swing and motion of the pendulum of a wall clock. Number 2, vibratory motion. The oscillatory motion in which the body assumes a new shape during its motion is called vibratory motion. In vibratory motion, a part of the body oscillates, keeping its other part fixed. Sound is produced when a body vibrates. Let us see a few examples which proves that each source of sound is a vibrating body. First, when you blow a whistle, the vibrations of the particles in air produce sound. Number 2, when we speak, our vocal cords vibrate to produce sound in the larynx, also known as the voice box. This can be felt by placing our hand on the throat. Number 3, when a bell is struck, it vibrates to produce sound. All these three examples prove that each source of sound is a vibrating body. So from the above examples and discussions, we can conclude that sound is produced by the vibrations in a body. When the body stops vibrating, the sound produced by it also stops. In other words, no sound is heard when the body stops vibrating. The production of sound by a vibrating body can be demonstrated by the following activities. Activity 1. Take a ruler, press its one end on the table with the left hand as shown in the diagram. Pull down the other end of the ruler with the right hand and then leave it. You will notice that the ruler vibrates, that is, the ruler moves to and fro and a humming sound is heard. After some time, when the ruler stops vibrating, no sound is heard. This shows that the humming sound is produced only because of the vibrations of the ruler. Activity 3. Take a drum and beat it as shown in the figure. You will hear the sound of the drum. Now, if you touch the membrane of the drum, you will feel its vibrations. When the membrane stops vibrating, then the sound will also stop. This shows that a vibrating drum produces sound. Now, if you put some grains of dry rice on the drum, you will see that when its membrane vibrates, the rice grains appear dancing up and down on its surface. Let us see one more activity. In this activity, you have to take a tuning fork and strike it against a rubber pad. You will hear its feeble sound. Now bring the tuning fork near a table tennis ball suspended by a thread as shown in the figure. You will notice that the ball jumps to and fro on touching the prong of the tuning fork. This shows that the prongs of the tuning fork are vibrating. When its prongs stop vibrating, ball stops oscillating and no sound is heard. This shows that the vibrations of the prongs of a tuning fork produces sound. Thus, we have seen three activities which shows that the production of sound is because of a vibrating body. Let us now discuss about some sources of sound. First one is tuning fork. A tuning fork is a U-shaped metallic piece with a stem in the middle. Its arms are known as prongs. They are set into vibrations when either of the two prongs is struck gently on a rubber pad and a sound is produced. Children, you can see this is a U-shaped metallic piece with a stem and its two arms. It is known as prongs. So this is a diagram of a tuning fork. Number two, we have musical instruments. All the musical instruments produce sound due to vibrations, and we will learn about different musical instruments in detail. Children, here we will see how different musical instruments produce sound. First, we have musical instruments like whistle, flute, and clarinet, which are in the shape of pipes and they produce sound when air is blown into them. In such instruments, the column of air inside them vibrates, producing sound. Next, we will see instruments like harmonium and mouth organ, which have metal reeds and they produce sound when air is blown through them. Next, we have stringed instruments like sitar, guitar, and piano, which have strings stretched on them. In a sitar and guitar, the string is plucked. In a piano, the string is struck. In a violin, a bow is drawn across the string. In all the three cases, string vibrates and produce sound when they are plucked, struck, or a bow is drawn across them. Next, we have instruments like drum, tabla, and dholak. Here, the leather membrane is made to vibrate by striking it up with a hammer or with hand, and the vibrating membrane produces sound. Children, we have already discussed about two sources of sound, that is tuning fork and musical instruments. Now we will discuss about human beings. Human beings produce sound when our vocal cords vibrate on blowing air through them by our lungs. We will discuss this in detail. Children, our throat has a larynx. You can see that in the diagram. This larynx is called as the voice box as sound is produced in the larynx. Or we can say it is designed to produce sound. It is a box-like structure with walls of tough tissues. Inside two folds of the tissue there is a gap and they are the vocal cords. When we breathe, the vocal cords become loose and the gap between them increase. And when we talk, shout or sing, the cords become tight and hence they vibrate and produce sound. You can even feel the vibrations of the vocal cord when you are speaking if you put your finger on your throat. Now there is a note here that see, some animals like birds, frogs, etc. they also have vocal cords and they produce sound due to vibration of their local vocal cords. But bees do not have the voice boxes. So how do they produce sound? See, bees produce sound by moving their wings up and down very fast. After discussing two topics, that is how sound is produced and different sources of sound, our next topic is sound needs a medium for propagation. That is, sound cannot travel through a vacuum. It requires a medium for traveling from one point to another. Now let us see an experiment which shows that sound needs a medium for propagation. So as shown in the diagram, we will first see what all are the requirements for our experiment. We have to take an electric bell and an airtight glass jar connected to a vacuum pump. We have to suspend the electric bell inside the jar as shown in the diagram and then connect the bell to a battery through a switch. On pressing the switch, the bell starts ringing and a sound is heard. The sound reaches us through the air in the jar. Children, we have already seen that After making the necessary setup of the experiment, when we press the switch, the bell will start ringing and the sound will reach to us through the air in the jar. Now we have to start the vacuum pump. This vacuum pump will withdraw the air from the jar. And you can notice that as the jar is evacuated, that is, the air from the jar goes on decreasing, the sound will also become feeble. And after some time, when no air is left in the jar, no sound is heard. Even though the hammer of the electric bell can be still seen striking the gong, that is, the bell is still ringing, but we cannot hear the sound. The reason is that when no air is left in the jar, the sound does not reach us, although the bell is still ringing. Thus, we can say that sound cannot travel through a vacuum, or sound needs a medium for propagation. Now, this is the reason why on the moon and in space, since there is no atmosphere, two persons cannot hear each other. The need of a medium for the propagation of sound can be demonstrated by the following activity. We have to take a tumbler and place a mobile phone A into it. Now we have to ring the mobile phone A from another mobile phone B, which is outside, as shown in the figure. We can hear the sound as air is there in the tumbler, and through the air the sound will propagate and reach our ears. Now we have to cover the mouth of this tumbler with a cardboard having a small hole with the help of a sellotape so that it becomes airtight. Then we have to pass a straw through the hole in the lid and suck out the air from the tumbler. Again, when we will ring the mobile A from mobile B, we will find that the sound of the ringing will gradually decrease as more and more air is withdrawn from the tumbler. And ultimately, when all the air of the tumbler has been sucked out, no sound is heard. This shows that the presence of a medium is necessary for the propagation of sound. Now we are going to discuss the last topic of our video, that is sound can travel through different mediums, that is solid, liquid and gas. First of all, we will discuss about sound traveling in solids. See, here we have an experiment as shown in the diagram. You have to place a clock on one end of a table and bring your ear close to that end, that is near the clock, as shown in the figure A, and you will be able to hear the sound of the clock. Now slowly you have to move the clock away from yourself till you will stop hearing the sound of the clock, that is shown in figure B. Now next you will place a ruler or a metal rod between the clock, which is at the other end of the table, and your ear, as shown in figure C. So now you will be again able to hear the sound of the clock. This shows that the sound can propagate in solids. Earlier in diagram B, the sound was not audible since clock was very far. But in C, you can hear the sound because of the presence of the metal rod or the ruler, which shows that sound propagates in solids. Let us discuss a simple activity which shows that sound can travel in liquids. As shown in the figure, you have to fill a balloon with water and hold it near your ears. Now you will keep the watch gently to the other side of the balloon and you will still be able to hear the ticking sound of the watch. Now this shows that sound can travel through liquids also. After discussing about sound traveling in solids and liquids, last we will see that sound can travel in gases also. Ask your friend to ring a bell and you will notice that the sound of the bell can be heard from any place near the bell. In daily life also you have experienced the same thing, and this shows that sound travels through air or gas. I hope whatever topics we have discussed is very clear to you all. We will continue with the chapter in the next video, that is part B for the same chapter. Thank you.